some profound songs, don't we? Well, as I say, it's March, it's growth month. That's our theme this month, is growth, and this month is letting go to grow. And I was reminded, as Sheila was doing her reading this morning, of the story you've probably heard about the little boy who watched a butterfly trying to hatch outside his window, and it seemed to be struggling and struggling and struggling, and so he thought he would help it, and he took a little pair of scissors and he cut the chrysalis a little bit so that the butterfly could come out easily, and the butterfly did. It dropped out easily, but its wings were shriveled and not useful, because the butterfly needed the struggle of fighting his way out of that cocoon in order to develop who he was. So sometimes, you know, we have to let go of things in order to grow, but we have to do it in our own time. So I've got a bunch of little gardening metaphors this month, and those of you who garden know March is the time. At least in some parts of the country, March is the time we can start to get started on that. And if you have plants in pots, you'll know sometimes pots get root bound, right? So we have to transplant them and put them in a bigger space. And one of the things sometimes people do when they're transplanting a plant is to massage the roots a little bit. You know, just sounds good, doesn't it? You know, massage those roots a little bit, free them up, because they've been locked together so hard. So we just massage them. Sometimes, depends on the person and the plant, and also sometimes you have to actually brutally rip those roots apart. And all of these, of course, are going to be analogies for our thinking, right? Sometimes we need to massage our thinking, and sometimes we need to rip it apart. Because our thoughts, I'm thinking in this analogy this month that our thoughts are like the roots that grow who we are. So, as well as transplanting and massaging our roots sometimes we have to prune things, right? We have to trim the dead wood. And we prune things in order to get rid of the dead wood, for one thing, but also to direct the growth of the plant. So apple trees and fruit trees are pruned. Rose bushes, I know, are pruned, and we like to prune a rose bush so that they don't all grow, all the branches don't all grow into the middle. Because in the middle, if they all grow into the middle, it gets dark and damp in there and diseases happen. So you prune the rose bush so that it spreads out and everything has air around it and it's clear. Well, sometimes it's like that with people too, isn't it? If we allow all our thinking to go into the middle where everybody else is, where do we find diseases and things in there? So we can kind of prune our thinking so that we're not thinking just all the same stuff as everybody else, but training ourselves to grow out and around in every direction and get fresh new air into ourselves. Isn't that a good analogy? I thought that one up all by myself. And then when we're growing things, you know, I'm not much of a garden, but I'm a great weeder. I know I have to pull weeds, and weeds are things that grow faster and stronger than what you want to grow. That's what a weed is, right? Anybody got any weeds in their thinking? Yeah. So we have to yank those out. And you know, all plants are wonderful. Everything's wonderful. Weeds have their use, but they're not what we want in this place of the garden right here. And it's the same with our thoughts. What's the beautiful picture of the garden we want to grow? So when we have that picture in our minds, what we want to grow, then we know which are the plants that contribute to that and which are the weeds that gotta go. And even if we're growing only plants that we want, we put in a row of carrots, right? Even though we're growing lots and lots of carrots, we gotta trim them, don't we? We have to pull out some perfectly good little carrots in order to make room for other carrots to grow bigger. We have to cull them. Because if we don't, we end up with a whole row of little teeny, skinny carrots that are too thin to peel and too thin to eat. Whereas if we get rid of some good carrots, we have room for other carrots to grow to their full potential. So we have lots of thoughts that are good, but if we're too scattered on too many good thoughts, we're not growing anything to our full potential, right? So we need to be conscious even of the good thoughts we're thinking. And say, do I have time to do that right now? You know, some people have a bucket list that's They're so busy writing their bucket lists, we never get anything done. Anybody? I'm going to do that someday. I'm going to do that someday. And I was thinking also, you know how the Chinese culture, centuries ago, they used to bind the feet of women to keep them petite and little, and I'm not sure, but I guess they thought that was beautiful. And the feet wouldn't grow, and so the women weren't able to hardly walk. I had a friend in high school, I had such a crush on him, his name was Andy Burrell. And he was. I saw a picture of him. By the time he was 30, he was completely bald. But anyway, he was the best athlete in the school. And he always said it was because he had such good bases. He had feet like snowshoes, you know. Let it grow, because that's our foundation. So I think of, I'm talking about the roots as our thoughts now. I'm thinking about soil as our foundation, our base. I have a friend in Victoria who has an incredible English garden. She's got a large backyard. You know, an English garden is kind of like a border garden, but hers is about 15 feet all the way around. And it's the layers, the heights, the plants are arranged in heights. So you've got your sunflowers in the back and your hollyhocks, and then rose bushes and daisies, and you know, things going down in layers until there's a little brown cover at the bottom. And it's just this mass of color all around, this great wall of color. And I said to her one day, I said, what on earth do you feed your plants, because they're so glorious and healthy and vibrant? She said, I never feed my plant, I feed my soil. This woman composts everything, and she doesn't mix it with anything. She actually takes her kitchen scraps and she buries it directly. Even, you know, we say you can't compost meat. She chops up her little chicken bones with scissors and buries it. She feeds her soil. So the soil of our creative process is that subconscious mind, the place where our conscious minds grow. And so we need to feed that soil of our subconscious mind, because it becomes the ground of being out of which we think. And we need to keep gradually feeding that until we're not even conscious of it, but we just naturally come from a place. So we know a lot of people out there, of course, come from a place of belief in the world as a hard and cruel world, a tough world where there isn't enough to go around, where people might be out to get them, where the government can't be trusted, where there isn't enough that I have to fight to get mine. That, you know, a lot of people who come from that kind of ground of being. And if we can gradually change that to believe that this is a kind and benevolent and abundant universe, that nature is love, and that I am interconnected with everyone, and why would anyone want to hurt me, because I am only love. If we can start to come from that place, then we're going to grow a beautiful, beautiful garden of radiant, abundant, and colorful flowers. Aren't we? Yeah. Yes. Right. So, what's the thinking that leads to those problems? Well, I think there's a couple of things. And the first one is the this isn't it syndrome. Anybody ever been there? Anybody ever wished they lived in a different place, wish they lived in a different house, wish they had a different partner, wish they had a different body, wish they were blonde, or wish they were brunette, or wish they had curly hair, or wish they had straight, you know, all that stuff? Because this isn't it, right? And its corollary, I'll be happy when. When I was in high school, I was going to be happy when I graduated high school and get out a job and earn some money. When I got a job, I was going to be happy once I got married. When I got married, I would be happy when I had a baby. When I had 3 babies, I would be happy when the kids went to school so I could go get a job. Then I was going to be happy when I got a divorce. And you know how it goes on and on and on. I'll be happy when. So this isn't it, and I'll be happy when. And then there's the opposite of this isn't it, that this is it. This is it. My way is it. I ain't changing, and it's not going to be any other way, and we've got to do it the way I said. All of those can lead to those root-bound situations in our lives. All of those, right? Remember Irma Bombeck? Remember the saying, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence? Irma Bombeck always said the grass is always greener over the septic tank. That's true, right? Look for the beauty right here. Carl Jung, writing 100 years ago, said, about 1/3 of my cases are suffering from no clinically definable neuroses, but from the senselessness and emptiness of their lives. This can be described as the general neurosis of our time. That was 200 years ago, it's true now. Because you see, we don't want the things we're supposed to want. You know, our parents taught us to be good, to not be troubled, right? Yeah, right? You were to sit still and be good and not be troubled. Our schools taught us to be good little workers. They didn't teach us to think. You know, we're bombarded with all that stuff, and of course the TV gives us all this stuff we're supposed to want, because we got to go out and buy it to keep the economy strong, right? We don't really want that stuff, do we? What we want is connection, we want love, and we want peace of mind. That's what we really want. That's why our lives seem empty and senseless. You know, living, what is it? Most men live lives of quiet desperation because we don't really want what we're supposed to want. So we need to get clear about what we really want. Harold Kushner, who's a wonderful rabbi, writes, and he's commenting about the American Declaration of Independence, and one of the rights is the pursuit of happiness. Harold Kushner says, the pursuit of happiness is the wrong goal. You don't become happy by pursuing happiness. You become happy by living a life that means something. The happiest people you know are the ones who work at being kind, helpful, and reliable, and happiness sneaks into their lives while they're busy doing those things. You don't become happy by pursuing happiness. It is always a byproduct, never a primary goal. Happiness is a butterfly. The more you chase it, the more it flies away from you and hides. But stop chasing it, put away your net, and busy yourself with other more productive things than the pursuit of personal happiness, and it will sneak up on you from behind and perch on your shoulder. So, you know, people in New Thought, we talk, everybody wonders, what's the purpose of my life? What am I here for? And I often hear in New Thought, well, your purpose is to be happy. And I've always been a little ambivalent about that, because, yeah, that's true, but we don't have the right idea of what happiness really is. You know, happiness really, and if you look back over your own life about when you were really happy, it's usually when you were being a valuable service to someone else, if that's really true for you. It is for me. So, non-attachment is a Buddhist principle, and a Hindu principle, teaching to non-attachment to the things of the world. But that doesn't mean you can't enjoy the things of the world, but be non-attached to them. So while they're here, absolutely enjoy them and celebrate with them, but have it be that if it disappears, it's perfectly all right. And that includes our monies, our cars, our houses, our spouses, even our relationships, even our children. That's really hard, isn't it? But non-attachment, because I have a friend in Victoria, she's always emailing me for advice, and she's well into her 80s, and of course now she's starting to hear about her friends who are ailing and starting to make their transition, and she always wants me to pray to keep them around, you know. And I had to email her last week, and I said, and she talked about how her partner was suffering, and I said, your friend has a sacred covenant with God that is none of your business, none of her doctor's business, and none of her partner's business. I had to tell it like it is finally. And she got it. Finally, she got it. You know, it is the way it is. We need to work with that. So non-attachment. This is a Hindu saying, nobody suffers in this world except people who want things they cannot have. When you learn not to desire, you will rise beyond suffering. Anybody want to rise beyond suffering? Let it go. Let it go to grow. And not only in your spiritual growth, but to grow in your happiness. To grow in who you are. There was a North American tourist in India, and it happened to be some kind of a holy day, and the residents of the village what they did on this holy day was they climbed a mountain. So this fellow said, well, hey, I like to do what the people do, and I'm fit. I run marathons, I jog every day, I can climb this mountain. So he began climbing the mountain with the villagers, and it was pretty much an all-day affair, and after a couple of hours he started to weary, but he looked around and he saw grandparents with children on their backs, still, going along at a steady pace. And he asked them what's going on, and the reply was, "It is because you have the habit of seeing everything as a test. You see the mountain as something to be defeated, so naturally the mountain fights back, and it is stronger than you are. We do not see the mountain as our enemy to be conquered. The purpose of our climb is to become one with the mountain, and so it lifts us up and carries it along." So can we become one with the mountains in our life? Whether they become physical or intellectual, mental or emotional mountains. We all have them. We're never going to stop them. But if we stop being attached to not having them and stop resisting, there is a saying, what you resist persists. Have you had that experience? And of course it's true, because our teaching is all about what we focus our attention on, we draw to us. So if we focus our attention on that which we don't like, we're keeping it in place. So there's all sorts of little sayings out there, go with the flow. And people just say that without thinking about what it means. But it's actually a very, very valuable advice. Go with the flow. Be unattached. Ever hit your thumb when you're putting up a picture? What do? You swear, you throw the hammer, you blame the nail for being too short, you make excuses and this and that, and whatever it is, and you fight the pain. What if you just sat with the pain? Pain. Love. Thank you for the lesson, But we don't, do we? Do we ever embrace what it is that we don't like? We resist constantly resisting. And what we're resisting, we're keeping in place. So what tool do we have? What is it that makes it easier for us to be not attached to the things of the physical world? Well, the thing is, if we think the things of the physical world are all we got, we're going to stay attached to them, aren't we? We're not going to let them go. The way we can let that go is by reminding ourselves that there is something else than the physical world. There is something more than we can see, touch, hear, feel, sense. There is something more that we intuit within ourselves, that we feel when we connect with each other, when we come together in group, when we meditate, when we pray. We know that there is something else. And when we turn our attention to that, then we create, we're all subject to the mass of the human race mind misconceptions, to that great garden that we're all thinking into, and we're all subject to that. But we can all influence that too, because it's as if there's one great surrounding us, this milieu that we're in is mind, that every thought that's ever been thought into it is creating a reality, and every thought that we can think into it now, drop by drop, is changing that reality. So it's all about being involved in that common mind, accessing the solutions that are also there. We've created all those problems together, but we can also always access a solution, and allowing and aligning with the universe, going with the flow, letting go to grow. Because every moment, every thought we're thinking, we're creating, and we begin again and again and again. We're always growing. So let go and grow. Namaste.